Hello, I'm Keith Spera from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Welcome to Let's Talk. My guest today is a true music industry legend. As a trumpeter, he sold millions of records with the Tijuana Brass. He also co-founded A&M Records, one of the most successful independent labels of all time. He'll celebrate his 90th birthday in 2025, but is still on the road touring. He and his wife, the singer Lonnie Hall, bring their Christmas show to the Jefferson Parish Performing Arts Center on December 14th, 2024. Here to talk about all this and more is Herb Alpert. Mr. Alpert, welcome to Let's Talk, sir.
Hey, Keith. Nice to be with you.
Thank you so much for doing this. We're kind of improvising the technology to make this happen, which, as a musician, you should be familiar with that concept, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Everything's working perfectly.
Excellent, excellent. So you've done so much in the music industry, both as a performer and as a business person. Folks may not be aware, though, of your more recent connection to New Orleans in the sense that your foundation has become one of the biggest benefactors of the New Orleans Jazz Museum, which is right there at the foot of Esplanade Avenue in the old U.S. Mint. If you would, just kind of run down how you first got involved with the New Orleans Jazz Museum and why.
Well, let me think. You know, I was in New Orleans several years ago and went through somebody took me through the Jazz Museum that was there at the time, and I was disappointed. I thought, hey man, this should be the #1 jazz museum in the world. This is the birthplace of jazz, and it seemed. And I know that building, you know, that was originally for minting, or was it? I forgot what it was called, but it was making money. So the building was designed to keep people out. So I thought, like, well, that's kind of a daunting thing. We have to find a way to keep people in or bring people in. So I just wanted to get involved. I saw the back room. There were things that were displayed that were not on display for the average person who was walking through the museum. But I saw, you know, Louis' mouthpiece and Sidney Becquet's this, that, and the other thing, I was amazed that it wasn't being seen properly. And I don't know. I just wanted to get involved. I love jazz. I think jazz is what we're all looking for. Jazz is about freedom. And we should have the #1 jazz museum right there where you are.
I like it. You know, oftentimes people get involved with something because they think it's great, and you got involved because you thought there was room for improvement and you could help them improve the museum and the presentation.
Well, quite frankly, I was embarrassed. I said, "This is your presentation of a jazz museum? No, it doesn't make any sense." So, I mean, I'm an outsider looking in, you know. I've just thought, well, how could you do that? I mean, this doesn't, I don't get it. I wanted to get involved. I didn't know to what degree I was going to get involved in, but I'm glad I did, because I think we have some really good things brewing, and I hope that everyone in the area is going to help support the museum.
Well, my understanding is, you've put up a $5 million, or your foundation has put up a $5 million matching grant to help them raise more money. You funded some other projects. And I think, from what I understand, your name will eventually be on the new education center right down there at the New Orleans Jazz Museum.
I don't know. I wasn't hustling for that at all. I mean, I was just trying to do what I felt was the right thing to do.
You've got a presence
at the museum already in the form of one of your sculptures. I mean, another thing folks may not realize is that you're a very accomplished visual artist, and your sculpture, I think it's, is it Bassman? Is that the one that's outside the museum right now?
Bassman is out there, and we're putting in this trumpet player that's a 14-foot trumpet player. That's an image not of me, not of Miles, not of Louis, not of any of the known trumpet players. I was trying to sculpt the feeling of playing jazz, what it feels like, the body motion of what it feels like, and that's the piece that's eventually going to be in the garden there.
Right. It's like you said. It's not portraiture, which you do. It's a more abstract impression based on feel and vibe.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say.
And as a man who, who has done very well playing trumpet, I mean, New Orleans is a trumpet town, so I think aesthetically it makes a lot of sense for you to be involved down here, for sure.
Well, if people love the work, I'm fine with it. I'm not trying to buy my way into the museum. No, by any means. I don't want to do that. If people are touched by it, great. It gives me pleasure.
You know, I was kind of stunned to learn that you had never played the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival until 2017.
Right.
Was it? Was that a gig that stood out for you? I mean, was that something special to actually play there at the festival?
I was looking forward to it. I don't know. You know, it's interesting as a musician and as a producer. You know, as soon as you sell a lot of records, which I did, it's 72 million plus, and you get pigeonholed. Am I a jazz musician or is he a pop musician? What kind of music is he's making? All this music that makes a lot of people happy. He's not playing jazz. He's just playing whatever he's playing. He got lucky with whatever that reason is. So you get tagged, and it's hard to get out of it. Yeah, I am a jazz musician. I think about jazz. I love jazz. It's my favorite art form. I started as a classically trained musician, and then I at one point playing in an orchestra, I just said, hey, I don't want to play everyone else's notes. I want to play my own feelings. So that's when jazz became important to me. And then, I had this unusual experience with Louis Armstrong. I was the MC of a show, and we played a couple of things together. And then I noticed, the sound that was coming out of Louis' instrument was the exact person that I met. I mean, that his feeling and his essence came right out of the instrument. And I said, man, if you're ever, I'm talking to myself, if you ever, you have to express your inner feelings. That's what jazz is all about. It's not about how all the technical ability an artist might have. I think there are a lot of musicians that are out to impress you when they play. They play high and low and fast and all that. And then I think there's other musicians that just try to touch you. And that's what I've always tried to do as a musician. Touch myself first. If I touch myself and another, yeah. Okay. Sometimes you have to explain that one. But I said, I've had some great experiences. I was very good friends with a lot of great jazz musicians. One was Stan Getz. Stan Getz was a dear friend of mine, but Jerry Mulligan, the very wonderful baritone sax player, he was playing when Bill Clinton was inaugurated as president years ago. He had 10 saxophone players play at the White House for his big party that he was having, and he included Jerry Mulligan into the 10 with a bunch of young players. And I remember about 3 days after I was speaking to Jerry, and I said, man, did you have a good time? He says, yeah, I had a great time. These young jazz musicians, man, they play high, they play low. They do all sorts of fancy things with the horn, but the only thing they can't do is leave the bone alone. And I knew exactly what he meant, man. I think jazz is a very unique art form, and it has to be deep. And we can tell the ones that are authentic, the Louis Armstrongs of the world. I mean, there is an authenticity about every note that they play, and I got that from all the great musicians that I've been privileged to meet in my lifetime.
No, absolutely. If you're just tuning in, my guest today is trumpeter and music industry legend Herb Alpert. I want to touch real quick on another New Orleans connection that was kind of instrumental early in your career. The song Whipped Cream off the title track of your, breakthrough 1965 album, Whipped Cream and Other Delights. That song, Whipped Cream, was written by one Alan Toussaint here in New Orleans. Did you like the song when you first heard it?
Well,
Something you immediately thought I could do something with it?
yeah, I'll tell you what happened. It's kind of a fun story because it was in 1965. I got a call from Henry Hildebrand, who was our distributor in New Orleans. And yeah, he was the distributor for A&M Records. He called me and said, you know, I heard a song that Alpert turned down. I said, well, I'd like to hear it. He played it for me over the phone, and I really liked it. It's something had a, I don't know, little lilt to it or something about it that touched me. So I said, would you send me the demo record that you heard? So I got it, and 3 days later I recorded it, really liked it, and that kind of touched my partner, Jerry Moss, off with the concept of let's do an album calling it, Whipped Cream and Other Delights, to take a bunch of food titles and put it in. You know, he was into concepts. I was into a song that really touched me and a great melody, but he was a concept person, and that was the genesis of the Whipped Cream and Other Delights album. It all started kind of from coming in the back door.
Alpert turned it down. He probably regretted that at some point, but no, it's a great story. And yeah, that record, I think, like I said, was the best-selling album of 1966. Outsold the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Frank Sinatra and everybody else. And that, really took you guys to the next level as an act. And it also was huge for A&M Records, which, as you said, you founded with Jerry Moss, your partner. Traditionally, record labels and artists have, opposite interests. What's good for the record label is not necessarily good for the artist. Did you give yourself a pretty good deal with that record label?
Yes. The short answer is yes.
Excellent. You knew who to call if you had a problem with the record label, I guess, as the leader of the Tijuana Brass. You knew who to call.
Well, I was interesting. The Tijuana Brass. We were at the right place at the right time, and when I recorded The Lonely Bull, that was in 1962, it took off like a rocket ship. And then my brilliant partner, Jerry Moss, we had to collect a bunch of distributors around the country and around the world, because they were people were calling us from all parts of the world wanting to distribute the record. Record was in the top 10 quickly, and I got a call from our distributor in Washington, D.C., who said, man, you guys have a smash. This Acapulco 1922 is a monster. I said, man, you're on the wrong side. So my point is, when things start happening and the door opens, you never know what's going to come through it. But, I mean, that's what happened with...
A&M Records, I mean, obviously the success of your band was very important to the growth of A&M Records, but then you guys went on to sign, The Police, Carole King, Janet Jackson, Bryan Adams, Sheryl Crow, Peter Frampton. I mean, an incredible roster of artists that you had on that label. Obviously when you're running a record label, not everything you're going to put out is your own personal taste in music, but you guys apparently had a very good ear for what was going to do well for that label.
Right, we did, and I recorded for a major label prior to A&M for about a year and a half, and I didn't like the way I was being treated, and I just felt that if I ever have a chance to have my own record company, I'd make the artists, make it revolve around the artists. So that's basically what we did, and also the idea of we weren't looking for the beat of the week. We weren't looking for the song or the artists that sounded like the top 10 artists that were on the charts. We were looking for our own, the artists that touched us, that maybe, didn't have a hit record, but if they were flagged down to the runway and given the freedom and the inspiration to make their own music, things could work out. So that's basically what happened.
If you're just tuning in, my guest today is Herb Alpert. One of those big records you had was the Peter Frampton record, Frampton Comes Alive. You didn't talk him into using that talk box on the solo, did you?
No, I didn't. But Peter is one of my favorite artists because he's a tremendous person and a lovely human being.
Speaking of tremendous people and human beings, we just lost Quincy Jones recently, who recorded for A&M early in his career, and you had a long association with him. From what I know of the man, I mean, he lived an extraordinary life, and you were certainly part of that. Was he as remarkable when you knew him up close and personal as he seemed to the rest of the world?
Quincy was a love. You know, he helped people. He was humble in his own way. But he had 18 balls in the air at the same time. He was doing all sorts of projects, and he had a crystal sharp brain. He did one arrangement for me with, I played Last Tango in Paris. He did that arrangement for me. And then we both produced Billy Eckstine. We did a single. Quincy and I did a single for Billy Eckstine. And I remember in the studio with Billy and Quincy, and Quincy wrote this extended intro for Billy Eckstine. Billy Eckstine was in the studio with his earphones on in front of the microphone and listening to this intro before he came on. He's, is this an X-rated program you have here, or can I say anything a little off color? Is it okay? Or
Yeah,
no?
go ahead, yeah.
Yeah. So he's listening to this intro, and he gets on the mic and says, "Hey, baby brothers, you can get laid before it's time to play, for time for me to sing."
Well, it's public TV, so we'll hope for the best on that one. No, he did seem like quite an interesting character. You know, and you guys had the Neville Brothers on A&M Records. You did the Neville Brothers, two of their greatest records, Yellow Moon and Brothers Keeper. You also did all those great Aaron solo records, Warm Your Heart, Grand Tour, all those records. Were you involved in signing the Neville Brothers? Was that something that you were into, the idea of bringing those guys over to A&M?
But not involved, but I certainly like them. And like most of the artists, the Neville Brothers fell into that same category of they had a unique. The guy had an amazingly unique sound in his voice, and a way of presenting his music that was different, but it was real. I mean, I think that's the whole key, being an artist in this world. You have to be authentic. You can't fake it. You can't try to play like somebody else. It's not important. That other person has already done it. So you try to find your own voice and hope for the best. And you got to be lucky. Little luck plays a part in it, and timing. I think if we tried to start A&M Records in today's environment, I don't think we would have. I don't think you and I would be speaking.
Well, yeah, and you guys sold it back in, the late 80s, and you hadn't been involved, but did I just read somewhere that they're reviving the A&M name with whatever company conglomerate owns it now? It's going to have like another life or something? Did I see that correctly?
You know, I don't know about that. The day I drove out of the A&M lot, I didn't look back. You know, it was just I had other things I wanted to do. I wanted to paint, I wanted to sculpt and make music, and I continue to make music, you know, obviously, as you know, to this day. It's part of my way of staying healthy. I'm a right brain guy. I'm an introvert, a card-carrying introvert, and I can entertain myself in my own studio alone. You know, just let me hear a good song, and then I'll start finding ways to maybe make some music with that song. And
yeah, right. A right brain guy and a left brain guy. I mean, you said you were extremely successful with A&M Records. I mean, you're one of those rare guys that was able to succeed on both hemispheres of the brain, I guess.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. You know, I'm good at putting the right people around me. There are a lot of things I don't like to do and are not qualified to do, actually. So I'm fine having like smart people hanging around and paying them for their brain power. As long as they're nice people. I mean, I can't hang around with people that are, not fun to be with.
Understood. Well, you're talking about still making music. This past year, you put out your 50th studio album, I believe, called 50. It also coincided with the 50th wedding anniversary of you and your wife, Lonnie Hall. I guess, yeah, I mean, and you kind of answered this already, but at this point in your career, having done so much, why is it important to you to keep on making music, to keep on putting out new records like this? I mean, you're 90 years old in 2025. I mean, what is the drive that keeps you making these new records?
Well, it's not important for anyone else. It's important for me to, make music and stay creative and have my way of being able to record and exercising my brain with all the doodads you can do and all the, it's just a world, completely different world out there when it comes to making music. When I started in this business, I had a Webcore wire recorder. Should I take a couple beats for the laugh? That happens now. Yeah, and then there was mono, and then there was mono tapes, and then stereo tapes, and then 2-track, 3-track, 8-track, 16, and so on. And then the digital world came in, and it changed the thing completely. I mean, the digital world, you have many tracks as you need. And just another way of making music, and quite frankly, another way of promoting music. It's not like the old days. It's not like the old promoters come in and hawk a disc jockey to play their record. And there's very few disc jockeys around anymore. And so it's a whole different way. And I'm okay with it. I mean, that's the way it is. Just if you have to find ways to get around it. And some of the artists, we have a jazz club here in Los Angeles called Vibrato that we've had for the last 18 years. And the sad part of it is there are so many great young and old jazz musicians that play at this club that you never hear about. It's hard to break through. It's hard to get through that whole thing that's happening with music and musicians these days. The frightening statistic is that there are 100,000 new singles coming out every day around the world. And so they're trying to get onto, Amazon and the Spotifys and all the likes. And it's just tough. It's tough out there for musicians. And I try to do my part to help them and get them aware of that. It's social media is the way to promote your product, but you got find people that are able to get around social media to help you.
What you talked about, surrounding yourself with smart people, that's important. We've only got a couple minutes left here. The show that you're going to be doing down here at the Jefferson Parish Performing Arts Center with your wife, with Lonnie, you're going to do, I guess, the classics from the Tijuana Brass catalog, some Christmas stuff. What else goes in the show? And it's a retrospective too. I mean, you're going to have images from throughout your career up on the screen, and it's kind of a retrospective of your whole life in music. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. That's for this year. But next year, and I will be 90, March 31st, born in 1935. I'm going to resurrect the new Tijuana Brass, and we get some more musicians and play some of the things that I know people have been asking to hear in its entirety, some of the older songs. So I'm going to do that for next year, and it's going to be a fun project for me because on March 31st, I'm going to be playing at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and I feel very lucky that I'm able to do this at my age, and I'm excited about life and excited about making music. And if I could be help to the Jazz Museum in New Orleans, I'm right there because that's the birthplace of jazz and it should be the number one, repeat, number one jazz musician in the museum in the world.
That's right. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Well, and just in the last 90 seconds we have, I mean, you talked about, the shows you're going to be doing in 2025. I mean, but your intention is to keep on playing and keep on doing it as long as you're capable. There is no stopping point for you in this sort of lifelong creative pursuit.
That's the way I see it. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do what I love to do. I love the idea of waking up each morning and getting excited about either I'm going to paint and sculpt or make some music that day. But I make music most every day, and it's always fun for me because I try to take songs that people recognize and do them in a way that they haven't been done quite that way before. That's always been what I've been after. And I've been very fortunate that there are a lot of people that come along with me. I like that.
A whole lot of them have. A whole lot of them have. Well, sir, I wish you good luck with all the pursuits coming up. Let's say you've got a heck of a legacy. Can't wait to see what the folks over at the New Orleans Jazz Museum end up doing with your support. And look forward to seeing you down here in New Orleans at some point.
Oh, definitely. It's been nice talking to you, Keith. And stay healthy. Be safe.
And the same to you. Once again, if you're just tuning in, my guest today has been Herb Alpert. I am Keith Spera. I'll see you next time on Let's Talk.